Hello, everyone. I'm Nick Pachewski.
I'm Andrew Miller.
And
welcome to the podcast.
All right. So, of course, with that intro, you know that our guest is the famous Don Newman. So before we get to Don Newman and talk about his new book that is out, why don't we check this out?
Hi, this is Kalle Mattson, and you'll be listening to 3 brand new songs off of my new record called Someday the Moon Will Be Gold. Me and my band will be at Safe Odds on December 21st for our annual holiday show with Amos the Transparent, and I really hope you enjoy the songs. You're listening to Lunch Out Loud. Thanks. Lonely love to skies above it, cheer me up when I'm feeling blue. Drive all night till the sun shines bright, we're gonna make it through and through. But you sing to me with a burning heart, and I sing it all back to you. Dreams are torn, what's dying is born. To look back, don't look through. Won't you pick me up, sweet Virginia, fill my cup with love today, or just bring me up to Laurel Canyon. Pick me up when I get down. When I get down. Lonely love to skies above. We're gonna make it, you'll just see. Come on.
All right, so the band you heard there, or the group, is Kalle Mattson. So that was Pick Me Up off his upcoming Someday the Moon Will Be Gold album. And he's going on a European tour at the beginning of the year, and then we'll have another show in February, as well as the upcoming Christmas concert that with Amos the Transparent that everybody should get to.
Absolutely.
So it's an absolute honor to be here in the, not the foyer of the Chateau Laurier, but one of the rooms.
Yeah.
With the man that used to run the show here for many, many great years.
Yeah, I gotta say, it feels like a Pee Wee hockey player talking to Wayne Gretzky here. We're maybe a little out of our league with the expert on hand for interviews and whatnot.
We're going to learn a lot today.
Yes.
Maybe we'll be doing this in 40 years as well. Who knows? So, of course, with all of our guests on, we like to get to know more about your association with Ottawa, your favorite restaurants, what your favorite things to do were in Ottawa, over the past number of years.
Well, when I first came here in 1969, I came in the fall, and I worked for the Globe and Mail in the Parliamentary Bureau, and Ottawa was a lot smaller town than it is now, and really I think I only ate in 3 different places. I ate in the Parliamentary Restaurant, where members of the press gallery could go, and still can.
Good food?
Yeah, pretty good food, and good prices. In those days particularly, I think it was all subsidized.
Oh, wow.
And in the parliamentary cafeterias, so that was all on Parliament Hill. There was one restaurant that's still there, but it was a lot smaller. It was called Al's Steakhouse on Elgin.
Yeah.
And it was almost like a hole in the wall, and it wasn't very big, and people often lined up outside during the evening to get in, and you'd see cabinet ministers standing in line, and Al was very democratic. But you had to like steak if you went there, and really you had to like steak too, because the other place was called The Place Next Door, and it was down on Rideau Street, and it was right next to Nate's Delicatessen.
Okay.
And it was also a steakhouse. And those were basically where there was to go to eat. There wasn't, there was diners and so forth on Elgin Street and around and about, but there weren't many restaurants, certainly in this vicinity.
Yeah, so you like your steaks?
I don't eat as much as I did then because I didn't have much choice.
Yeah.
And what about activities? When you did get here, you were doing many things, so maybe you didn't have enough time to enjoy more of the city as you could have. But maybe now, what are you taking advantage of when you do get the chance?
Well, actually, I lived here in the winter of 1971-72, and that was the year they opened the canal for skating.
Really?
So I skated on the canal. And the first year there was skating on the canal. Next year I went to Washington, didn't skate in the canal until 1982 again. But in those days when they decided to do it, they just kind of plowed like almost a track down the middle, and they had big high banks on each side. So when you were skating along, you basically could see the people who were also skating. but you couldn't see outside the
banks.
The banks, and that was a year. The year before had been a record snowfall, and the next year was pretty big snowfall too. But really, that's about all I remember of recreation in Ottawa that was any different than anywhere else, and that was skating along the canal the first year.
And it probably wasn't as long back then as it is now, going all the way to Carleton. Or did they make it to Carleton back in the day there?
You know, I can't remember. I think they did. But
because there's a good method.
I always basically got on at Bank Street and skated down the NAC and then skated back.
Yeah.
Then I got off because I was tired.
Yeah, it's a pretty long hike for sure.
I see Paul Dewar on the canal quite often.
Well, now you see everybody on the canal.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true. Well,
and it's a lot wider, right? So there's a lot more people on it because they plow off all the snow. And yeah, it looks like everybody in Ottawa is out there on a nice sunny afternoon in
not
February.
much better than that.
No,
not much better than that.
Yeah.
So any other, have you been able to catch a lot of the new restaurants that are coming out in Ottawa that are getting national recognition?
Yeah, I go out quite a bit. I also like my pub, the Barley Mow on Bank Street, just south of the canal.
Yeah.
I probably go there as much as anywhere. The food's really good for pub food. And the beer is the same as any other pub, so it's okay. I like the restaurants in the market. 18's a good restaurant. I really miss Claire de Lune. Stella's there now, and it's nice enough, but Claire de Lune it's also kind of a great hangout. But I go to Becta, I like Les Fougères up in the Gatineaus. Those are probably my three favorites.
I don't think I've ever been to that one up in the Gatineau.
No.
Is that in like Chelsea area? Or?
Yeah, but you have to drive.
Yeah.
And so you go easy on the wine, Anthony, when you get up there. Andrew, because when you get up there, you got to drive back.
Absolutely.
All right, so I guess we'll get into talking about the book, because that's essentially why we're here. An incredible new book. Welcome to the broadcast. Mm-hmm. And before, I just had one question I wanted to get out. I have many to come, but the one embassy party that you couldn't miss during the year, because you're probably invited to so many different embassy parties from seeing everyone throughout the year. Which is the one that you blocked off that calendar date, knowing that you wanted to go there?
Well, I think, and it's a huge guest list, almost everyone goes to the July 4th party at the Americans. But there's some nice parties around in different embassies, and to some degree it will depend on who the ambassador of the day is.
That's true.
How hospitable they are, or how many parties they want to have. But I like them all. But the big countries, the British, the French, the Germans, the Americans have probably more parties than most, and they're good. But the current Belgian ambassador is terrific. I never missed an invitation with him. Yeah. Where you necessarily and not every Belgian ambassador has been that way, but quite a few of them have been. It's sort of an interesting thing. The Dutch ambassador, who's just gone back, was great. His name was Wim Geerts.
Wim Geerts is not here anymore.
No, he's gone back.
Oh wow! Yeah. I'm waiting for I'm getting my Dutch citizenship, so I'm just waiting for the entrance ceremony there.
Well, I hope you're not waiting for him to be there. If it all hangs on him, you're not getting it.
Certainly not. So, and there's a great story about the Irish embassy on the.
In St. Patrick's Day. Well, and then St. Patrick's Day is just fantastic. I never miss that either. I don't know why it is. It is kind of like the July 4th party of the winter. Like everybody is there. It's just huge.
Great new additions to the Irish embassy as well.
Well, that's so they can have more people in. More people there sometimes than there are in Dublin.
It's all prep work for March 14th.
So with the new book coming out, how has traveling across the country and selling a book been different as to going across the country and selling the news, essentially, and promoting the news?
Well, I think I had to get used to it a bit. I hadn't done it before, but I had done a little. I'm now on their advisory board, but I was on the board of the Canadian History Society, and we produced two books, one 100 Photos That Changed Canada, and the other 100 Days That Changed Canada, and in each there were 100 essays and 100 pictures to go with whatever the event was.
Yeah.
And I wrote, in the 100 photos, I wrote 4 of the essays, and in 100 days, I wrote 3 of the essays. And particularly on the 100 photos, I went on the book tour for HarperCollins and the History Society. So I had some experience, but there were other authors going as well. And it was actually a good kind of training ground because I wasn't carrying the whole thing on my shoulders.
Yeah.
I didn't have my picture on the front, so if it didn't work, it wasn't my fault. So I had done it. I knew what to expect.
Have you been able to hit, how many cities have you been to in the past few months?
I've been, and some I've had 2 or 3 events. I've been to Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa, Winnipeg, Regina, Edmonton.
So, Don, as a journalist, politician / mayor, what is your view on conducting yourself at night after hours? Because you do have a couple stories in your book about times in Washington where you're called away from a dinner party. But in more recent time, the Newsroom, the new show, an excellent show.
Do you get
with
to catch that
Sorkin.
I sometimes, yeah.
Yeah?
I'm not a faithful viewer, but yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Is it fair to point?
It is. It's better when it does the journalism rather than the personal lives of the.
The tear-jerking.
It gets too much of that. Got to be a football game on tonight. What are the Leafs doing? Oh, the Senators do.
But in the show, Will McAvoy is pulled away when Bin Laden is captured, and he's high on marijuana, and so that is an aspect. But he does still go in to do the show and does it flawlessly. And we know that with
what you don't know is that after that he did every show high on marijuana.
Yeah, it worked out well for him.
This is great.
But in Toronto,
like working.
In Toronto, you have Rob Ford, who would love to get inebriated beyond belief. And if he was called, what's your view on being called into a situation like that in that aspect?
Well, I had a rule when I was in broadcasting as a full-time career. I never had a beer or anything until I was through for the day. And sometimes when I worked at the Globe and Mail, sometimes you have a beer at lunch, if you're thirsty, and having a beer and a sandwich. Never did that in broadcasting. I never, I'm not sure it makes all that much difference, but I didn't want to find out in a negative way, so I never did. Never did.
But what about if you're at a dinner party and something like the Bin Laden capture, and you're the one that they're looking to break the world news there?
Well,
has that ever happened where you're in an odd situation and you got pulled out? Where
one time in about 1990-91, I had gone to dinner at a nice Italian restaurant, and I guess I'd started a glass of wine, and I got a call that I had to come right back to the CBC bureau, which in those days was in the press building on Wellington Street, that there'd been a power outage in Toronto, and I would have to read the National. And they were going to fax the script. I guess the phones were still working in Toronto. Yeah. They were going to fax the scripts to Ottawa, and we had just this little, really rinky-dink little studio in the Parliamentary Bureau. No auto cue, no teleprompter.
Yeah.
And the people who had been writing the scripts had not been writing them all the same size. So, some were very small letters and some were big letters. And I got this, but I had, I don't think I'd finished one glass of wine, but I certainly had a few drinks before dinner, and I had to sit down and do that live to the country with the skeleton crew and working off this rinky-dink operation. And of course, not only was the country watching, as they always do the National, but everybody in Toronto was incredibly focused on it to see if we could pull it off. So I knew that all the president and all the big bosses were watching, and luckily it went flawlessly. And there was no lot of guys looking down and up the lot rather than just looking at the camera, but that's the only thing close to it.
So those are kind of an example about you. It seems that reading this book, you love these kind of times in your career where it was unknown how things would occur, and it was always something different. You loved having things different, and maybe that's why you were asked by 3 different prime ministers to be a director of communications, and you always had that long chat, but in the end...
Yeah, I never wanted to do that. I have a chat with them to be polite. I mean, if someone offers you a nice job,
You got to at least talk to them.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
No, I just love the work and a live program, as I did. You never know how it's going to turn out. I mean, you think you know how it's, and some days it's pretty well the way it is. But live events, which I did a lot of broadcasting, you're never quite sure, and things can just blow up in your face. And even things that the viewers don't see, where you'll be going along and you'll have a list of people you're going to be talking to, reporters on remotes, and you're just starting to introduce, say, Wendy Mesley, and they say, keep going. We don't have Wendy.
Just in the back of the ear where you don't know it. Yeah.
So you say, and so when down on the convention floor, we don't. And in your head, there's a lot of delegates milling around, as you can see, and so you have to pull it back and keep it going. But that's sort of the excitement of it. Is how are you going to steer it through? Because there'll always be things like that go backwards on you,
and it takes a special person not to break when that happens, right?
Well, I
when
think
something doesn't go the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, well, some people like that. That's the fun of it, and other people wouldn't like it, but they might be better at something else.
No, absolutely. Yeah. So we're going to take a quick break with Kalle Mattson. We're going to listen to another song called "An American Dream."
Tonight, when all our yesterdays have gone, highlight and bright. And won't you pick me up?
All right, so we're back with the Don Newman after a song from Kalle Mattson. So I guess we'll get into more about the book. What can people expect when they're buying the book for their family, loved ones, for the holiday season coming up?
Well, they can expect a big book. It's almost 500 pages. I didn't know it would be that big. In fact, I'd never written a book before. As I said, I'd written little bits of a book. And when I got the contract, it said a book of at least 80,000 words.
Oh,
and I thought, there aren't 80,000 words. How will I ever do 80,000 words? And when I finished, I gave them 150,000 words, and they cut it down to about 140,000 words. So they'll find it a big book. They'll find it a book that is about politics. It's about the media. It's about Canada. It's about how journalism works, how we go about doing it.
Many ways of how it started, yeah.
And basically, most of it you're seeing through my eyes.
Well, there's a pretty interesting story in there on how you got started in journalism, is there not?
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't get a summer job. I'd been sick in university, and I couldn't write my exams, and I couldn't go out and get a summer job.
Yeah.
And the job I wanted was cutting the grass in the city of Winnipeg for the city, which paid well, and you didn't have to work in a range. So
that's a good gig.
So that so you're on the outside.
I
the
grew
good
up
weather.
working on farms. I know that.
There you
That's
are.
Get in shape.
But because I was ill, I was quite ill, all those jobs were filled.
Yeah.
So I had a brother who worked at the Winnipeg Free Press as a reporter, and he said, I don't want you coming where I work, kid, but you could go over to the Winnipeg Tribune, which was the other paper, and see if they have a job as a copy boy, which is basically the office boy.
Yeah.
And so I went over there, and I took his advice, good advice. And at first they said there were no openings, and then by the time I got home, they phoned me and said, I guess someone had quit, I don't know. Can you start on Monday? I said, I'll be there.
Oh,
and from day one, I just loved it, and so.
So how long did it until you thanked your brother for getting you in there?
I was thinking maybe for Christmas I might, send him a card. Say, thanks a lot, Raj. No, I thanked him, and without him, I don't know what I would have done.
That's
I'd
great.
probably be cutting grass in winter.
But
Shoveling snow in the winter.
Journalism certainly wasn't something you aspired to when you were younger.
No, I mean I knew about it because my brother, I think since probably the time he was 12, that's what he wanted to do, and that's basically all he did too. He had a very nice career. But but then when I hit it, I was 19 going on 20, and I thought, wow, now I know why he wants to do it.
Fast pace, you never know what's going on. The competition between the Tribune and the Free Press was great learning about that. When you say that's what you're going to learn from the book, I picked up a little something different, which is even more. I picked up stories of passion, intuition, never quitting, taking risks, the importance of connections, and being genuine. I love these stories, especially in our industries, about making connections, and because you never know when you're going to need that person again in the future. And it seems like several times throughout your career in journalism, you would run back and even when you started a new show or you're offered a new show, you would have to decide who would fit this best, and you would always kind of think back and go, here's an all-star team, and pull people from different connections and sell them on coming on with you and working and making a successful show that way.
Well, you do have to do that, and if you are starting something, and I was interesting in my career. I was the first Washington correspondent for CTV. Then I took over a program which had been on the air, but they wanted a different program called This Week in Parliament. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden comes all news television, CBC News World, and people had ideas of how to do all of them, but I was able basically to do a lot of the way they were shaped, because I had an idea what I thought would work, and then you look around and say, well, who would like to do that, or who could do that, and who'd be helpful to do it, and then quite often they haven't thought about it that way, and you have to sell them on that. Yeah. And I was lucky. I had great people working with me, particularly the Newsworld people were all of them. I can't name them all, but I had two senior producers, first Dave Matthews and then Sharon Musgrave, and they were just great.
And that means a lot when you're working with someone that you can respect, that there's a mutual respect, and you're not nervous to bring up any different ideas.
Dave was already the assignment editor in the Parliamentary Bureau, and I don't think he originally thought Newsworld would be all that important, but when I talked to him about it and talked to him what I thought the show could be, he got very keen. Sharon, I was just a talent spotter. I don't stand back at all from boasting about it. Yeah. She was a boom girl. She held the mic on a crew, and she was smart. She didn't want to just be a boom girl all her life. Yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with doing sound and doing it properly. Yeah. But she you could tell she was going to be a comer, and she would have been a big success without me. But luckily, I was able to get her and help her, and she helped me.
Well, that's good.
Sorry.
I was going to say, after the 40-some years in journalism, you made a lot of connections with different politicians and whatnot. And I read somewhere where somebody asked if you thought that Stephen Harper had used you, and you said, well, about as much as you had used him. Mm-hmm. Are there some politicians or whatnot throughout that you still remain friends with, even though it's been a couple of years now that you've been sort of out of the game, so to speak? You got a couple of are there people that that you built good connections with that you're still somewhat close with?
Well, living in Ottawa, I continue to run into people all the time. The one person that, and I didn't know he was going to be, I kind of thought he might be a politician because he was interested in university politics. Yeah. But he didn't know I was going to be a journalist because I didn't know I was going to be a journalist. It was Lloyd Axworthy, who I first met at university. And I still keep in touch with him a bit when I'm in Winnipeg. But he lives in Winnipeg. And, but other than him and another man named Donald Johnston, who was in the last Trudeau cabinet, went on to head the OECD and stuff. I stay in touch with. I mean, I would put them down as friends. Yeah. The others are probably mainly acquaintances, but I mean, I still like politics, and I'm still doing work around politics.
Yeah.
So.
What are your? I know this is just recent news, but the major deal with CBC, that was with the NHL getting the $5.2 billion, because in your book you talk a lot about the 2005 lockout, which is very interesting. Of course, it's very interesting in the book when you talk about the CBC and how they receive funds from the government and the downsizing and how a lot of things were shifted, how your views were. Executives coming in and out because of these kind of changes, and I guess some creativity was stymied because of that. But how do you see the CBC going forward without that major hockey contract?
Well, I mean, going forward, the CBC was going to have a problem anyway, and the fact that it doesn't have the hockey contract is a good example of it doesn't have the money. So this was basically inevitable.
Okay.
Whether or not broadcasting is a very funny industry. It's the ownership of broadcasting stations is protected, but very little of what they put on the air is protected. And so we've allowed our country to be. Well, no, I'm not thinking about that. At least it's Canadian. You know, they may be whack jobs, but they're Canadian. Basically, private broadcasters show American programs and put Canadian commercials in them.
Yeah.
That's private broadcasting. And so the CBC has to compete with that with less money all the time. And at one time, you couldn't be a cable company and own broadcasting stations. Well, now, of course, you can. And Bell owns the satellites, and Rogers owns the cable. So it's basically such an uneven fight. And it's a stupid fight because we wouldn't let the banks be owned, taken over by Americans, basically.
Yeah.
You know? And that's even though the Canadians are the owners, it's been taken over by American content, which is really good content. So I don't know. And it's really hurt. It's hurt our country that all the popular television shows are American television shows that are basically American culture, not our culture. And I'm not saying, I mean, I prefer our culture because obviously we don't shoot each other in the schools and so forth. But there are lots of great things about the United States too. I am putting it down, but I don't mean to put it all down.
But it's just one.
But it's just the CBC it's screwed,
Yeah.
And whether it's screwed over hockey or it's screwed over something else, it's screwed.
And it's hard for the government to give more money because then they're.
Well, this government would
not.
If they could give less money and get away with it, they would.
They certainly would.
And that's very interesting stuff. I guess before we leave, it's Kevin Page, not in the book, but what were your views on that? Because he was brought in with fanfare and then, of course, dismissed with doing a bad job by the Conservative government.
Well, he just
Not
wasn't.
a bad job.
He wasn't dismissed.
Oh, hold on. We're taking down the. Okay. Sorry.
Well, he wasn't dismissed. He was just not renewed, and he knew he wasn't going to be renewed because he basically did his job properly.
Exactly.
The great irony of it is that it was the Reform Party originally, which is now the government, though they call themselves the Conservatives, that wanted a parliamentary budget officer. And the minute they got one, oh my God, they started to attack him. But these were the same guys that brought in the fixed date election law, and then twice just ignored it and went and called elections anyway. And so, I mean, this is a very strange government. It hasn't. It's not just awful. It's parts of it are quite good.
Yeah.
But it's very, very strange.
Very strange.
It's. I don't know if it's the personality of the Prime Minister or kind of the collective wisdom of the government or what, but it's very odd, to have a budget officer and then trash him, and then have a fixed date election law and then twice ignore it. And I mean, all of these different things that they make a big deal about when they were in opposition. Once they find themselves in government, well, that was a dumb idea. Well, whoever thought of that? Can you see them in the cabinet? Whoever thought about that? Not me.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's happened a number of times. And I'm just going to read a quote for people. This is my favorite quote in the entire book because this one.
Well, it doesn't say the end.
And no matter how political parties try to portray themselves as being different and doing politics differently, at its essence, politics is politics, no matter the ideology of the people who practice it. If you are not clearly for me, then you are against me, and I will treat you as an enemy. That is why politicians usually see reporters as their enemies. Highly partisan people cannot believe that everyone isn't like them. And if you are reporting something that hurts a politician or helps one of their opponents, it is not seen as just facts. It is seen as taking sides. And I see that as a major problem in politics. And that's why it turns off several people because of that fact in itself. Because they just see it as an absolute game, one against the other. And I guess it's seen a lot more in the United States with a two-party system as opposed to us with many parties, but...
Oh, we're pretty good at it here, too. I don't know. I wouldn't give any ground to them.
But,
not on that, anyway.
But anyways, it's a great book. I see it as very important because, of course, I was in math and calculus, and I never did history courses in high school because I only had to do one beginning Upper Canada and all that in grade 9, and I did all math courses. But this gives you a very what has happened now. How did it come to be? Because I love hearing about it more now, and you get 40 years of behind-the-scenes knowledge. So an excellent book, and I hope everybody can pick it up online, several locations.
Different spots in Ottawa that people can grab it?
All over the city, I think.
Perfect. Number one seller all across the city.
The independent bookstores and the big chain, too.
Perfect.
And any words of wisdom for us to go forward?
For us, and I mean, we had Carleton University paper on last week, and before that, Ottawa U. Any advice for the young journalists out there?
It's going to be tough to find the kind of gainful employment that I was lucky enough to. You know, the media has changed so much, and the economic model has changed so much.
Absolutely.
But the truth matters, and being able to do journalism, to be able to collect facts, to sift out the ones that are important and leave out the ones that aren't, and to be able to make the comparisons with what is happening today and what happened previously and what people said was going to happen and what really happened is a very important role, and we need it in a democracy. You can't have a free society without having a democracy, and you can't have a functioning democracy without journalism. So the people who are in it now, keep going. Keep going.
Stick with it.
That's especially with. I wish the Liberals would have learned that. Well, I don't wish, but they should have learned that when you said that in *84 with the election before with Trudeau. They would have had a better showing in 2006.
Well, that's their problem. I mean, on one level, it's everyone's problem, but it's
Real quick, one more thing. How are you enjoying retirement?
Well, I'm not retired. When I am, you're the first guy I'm calling. I wondered if I would miss the program. I picked the date I was going to leave 2 years before I left, and I stayed with it even when they said, "Well, stay one more year." You didn't tell us in time, and I told you in time. You got months, and I haven't missed it. I miss my friends, of course, but you can still see your friends. I'm busy doing public policy work and doing consulting, and I like that. Writing the book was a lot harder than I thought it would be, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm really glad I did it.
Yeah,
that's great. Onward and upward.
That's Canada good. 2020 is, and they have many of the events here at the Chateau Laurier. I've been to many of them. They're very interesting to see the policies going forward, the out-of-the-box thinking, which I love, and they bring in great guests. I was the Larry Sumner's was great. Oh yeah, really enjoyed that one. Very interesting.
Biggest superstar.
Biggest superstar. I was there. Yeah. I liked when he was asked a question, he would sit back for a very long time to think of the answer and then come up with a well-formed answer. I have not learned from that yet.
It's better than having diarrhea of the mouth.
And major plans for this weekend? Toronto.
I'm going to Toronto, but not for the weekend.
Okay. So you'll be back here. Well, we're going to try to get used to some of the events this weekend. So tonight, Thursday, we have a pop-up art gallery in Wellington, in Westboro, at 332 Richmond, for the pop-up gallery featuring Andrew King, Alison Fowler, Catherine Jeans, Erin O'Neill, and David Ledbetter.
So that should be really good.
It's going to be a great art show with pieces that would fit anybody's budget going forward for the holiday season. That's going to be open up until the 22nd of December.
That's some good Christmas
but
shopping.
And then from 5 to 8 p.m., 25 plus shops on Wellington West we'll be having a night of goodies and discounts along the street, so it's a great night of shopping there. And of course, one of my favorite bands, Trees, is playing at Press Cafe for $2. You got to go to it.
$2. Can't beat that.
$2. This weekend in Tremblant, you got the 24-hour Tremblant.
Yeah.
That's going to be a lot of fun. Friday, you have Crush Improv's 6th anniversary special. Have you ever watched Crush Improv?
No, I haven't.
We have to get you out sometime.
Where is it?
Yeah.
Well,
Where is it?
this one's at the Academic Hall at the University of Ottawa. It's their 6th anniversary show, so it's $20. But they also do one at the first Monday of the month at the Heart and Crown in the market. And I know you have some stories in the book from the Heart and Crown as well. Dave Bindini has a new book.
I had to take them out.
That's part of the couple thousand that got chopped.
Dave Bedini has a new book coming out, so he'll be here Thursday night at Raw Sugar as well, so that's pretty good. Friday night, you have Red Handed. It's the 6th annual Christmas art show at Psychologics. 40 artists working with a theme of red will be selling their wares there. That's pretty good. There's a hub market for all the self-employed people and people that run jobs at the hub Saturday, 12 to 4 p.m. to get down there. Sunday, you have a Hindenburg Public House Poker Gift Exchange. That's pretty interesting.
Poker Gift Exchange.
When you bring a gift, you win a hand or win a small tournament, and you get a present. If you don't like it, you put it back on the tree and you grab another one. You have a choice. So that's kind of cool. What do you got? What do you got, Andrew?
Well, December edition of Hip Hop Karaoke on Friday at Ritual.
Always fun.
Yeah.
Hip hop karaoke. Can we
Yep.
see you
Absolutely.
there rapping?
There you go.
Absolutely.
Ritual on Saturday as well.
I'll be there. Don't be square. I'll bring books and see if they cooked.
There you go.
You got some free
By
stuff.
what?
Yeah, I like that. Also at Ritual on Saturday, Scratch Bastard and Illo will be playing. Scratch is one of the best DJs around. Amazing. Got to check him
Ottawa?
out. No, he's not from Ottawa, but he's amazing.
Okay.
Then the Ottawa Pop Expo, Saturday and Sunday at the Ernest and Young Center. That's out by the airport if you haven't been there yet. Going to be tons of guests there. Brett the Hitman Hart's going to be there. Honky Tonk Man. A whole bunch of people from the television series The Walking Dead, as well as Tony Moore, who was the illustrator for the comics. We also have a couple of people from the Boondock Saints. You got David Della Rocco and Sean Patrick Flannery. Ernie Hudson from the Ghostbuster movies.
I like him.
Jason
Great
Momoa, who played Khal Drogo in the
And it's all
television
online.
series Game of Thrones. Yeah, so go check that out. There's going to be tons of people there.
Is it expensive? Do you know?
I'm not sure what cover is going to be.
$10, but the parking's $12.
Yeah.
Ertz and Young Center. That's where they get that.
Yeah.
That's where they get your money. Oh, one quick guess that I liked. I saw the photo in the book, but you never talk about it. Meeting Chevy Chase was my icon.
Oh, right.
Back in the
Right.
late 70s, early 80s.
That was the first year of Saturday Night Live.
Oh,
really?
Year you got to
Yeah,
interview them.
yeah.
Unbelievable.
And Lauren Michaels was the producer. He was Canadian.
Canadian.
Still a producer.
Yeah.
Still a
Yep.
producer.
Yep.
And I was actually doing a story about jokes about President Ford. And he fell down a lot, which was funny. He'd been
Just
a
like
football
Rob
player,
Ford.
but yeah, kind of. I don't think for the same reason, but anyway, I was doing, and Chevy Chase was the first one to do the weekend update on Saturday Night
I
Live,
love those.
and he always had like Ford jokes in it,
Yeah.
and so I was interviewing him and Lauren about the Ford jokes, and it was part of a larger piece. I was at CTV then that I was doing for W5. But that was fun.
That's a fun.
Oh, wow.
great-
Speaking
loved
of
him
weekend
in Vegas.
update, Ottawa, I wonder if we can ever get Norm MacDonald.
Yeah.
If
sure,
he's ever
we
back to Ottawa,
Yeah, we can.
we could try to grab
I'll
him
do
on the
that.
show.
I'll
That would
get
be
him
a
on.
funny show.
Anyways, one last song from Kalle Mattson. Thank you so much.
Thank
Yeah.
you, fellas.
And,
Thank you.
Next week we
Next
have
World's
Mike
biggest
Spen-
traveler.
The world's biggest traveler from Ottawa. 195 countries. Unbelievable. It's been
23
everywhere.
years. No,
Not
no.
Mike Duffy, no
Not
Mike
Mike
Spencer Bone. So we'll leave with one last song from Kalle Mattson. It is called Darkness. Thank you so much for joining us. Facebook.com/LOL Ottawa and find us on iTunes. Have a great week, everyone.
Take care.
Followed you, darkness, into the feeling that I thought I'd know. Sing to you a feeling, and it's a strange truth and so hard to show. night it brings me bounty, and though he still seems so far from home, placement sleeping soundly, whispered silence, wow, so it goes. Starry maze, I know it's no place for me to go. You know my blood's so blue, I sing a song for you, 'cause it's a bleeding heart and it's knowing to grow down in my bones. Signs they come and go, an empty sleep it carried me to you with nothing to show. Stand me up so varied, 'cause our cover's finally been blown. Placement sleeping soundly, whispered silence, well, so it goes. Life is days and days, I stumbled starry maze, I know it's no place for me to go. You know my blood's so blue, I sing a song for you, 'cause it's a bleeding heart that's knowing to grow